What if I told you there's a tree that shaped the childhood of an entire nation? A tree that Native Americans revered for over 10,000 years. A tree so valuable, colonial settlers traded it for gold. A tree that flavored every grandmother's spring tonic and eventually America's favorite soda. And then, almost overnight, it vanished. This is the story of Sassafras, the tree America forgot. Long before Europe set sail, sassafras thrived across eastern North America, from Maine to Florida, from the Atlantic coast to eastern Texas. Native tribes knew it by different names: the Choctaw and Cherokee, the Timucua of Florida. Each recognized its power. Every part of the tree was medicine. The roots were brewed into teas for fevers, colds, and blood purification. Leaves were crushed into poultices for wounds, sprains, and insect bites. The bark was chewed to kill bacteria and freshen breath long before toothpaste existed. If you dried the leaves and ground them into powder, it became file, a thickener that would later define Louisiana Creole gumbo. Sassafras wasn't just a plant, it was survival. When English settlers arrived at Roanoke in 1585, they faced brutal winters and famine. They survived by boiling sassafras leaves. The mucilage in the leaves provided essential calories when nothing else grew. Imagine that, an entire colony clinging to life, saved by a tree. By the late 1500s, Europe caught wind of sassafras. A syphilis epidemic swept the continent. Doctors had no cure. Patients were desperate. Suddenly, a tree from the New World promised blood purification and wellness. The aroma alone was intoxicating. Legend says Christopher Columbus knew he had reached North America simply because he could smell sassafras on the wind. By the early 1600s, single shipments weighed a ton. Apothecaries sold it as salep, a dark medicinal beverage for fevers, digestive issues, and skin ailments. Europeans paid its weight in gold. Captain Martin Pring of England returned from New England a wealthy man, all because of sassafras. For 50 years, it became America's second largest export after tobacco. But the most valuable part was the bark, which contained the highest concentration of saffrafrol oil. Harvesting the bark killed the tree. By 1626, English colonists had nearly stripped every accessible sassafras tree. Yet the tree endured. Roots sprouted new shoots. Seeds lay buried in the soil, waiting. Nature has its ways. Fast forward to the 1840s, American entrepreneurs discovered a brilliant idea. You could turn sassafras root into a sweet, fizzy drink, a taste of childhood, comfort, and home. Root beer was born. By the turn of the 20th century, every corner store sold it. Every grandmother brewed sassafras tea as a spring tonic. Southern cooks kept file powder in pantries for gumbo. George Washington drank it. Benjamin Franklin praised it. Thomas Jefferson served it at Monticello. Charles Hyers turned it into a commercial empire, marketing root beer as a healthy alternative to alcohol. It became as American as apple pie. Then came 1960. The FDA announced that saffrol, the compound giving sassafras its flavor, caused liver cancer in laboratory rats. Almost overnight, sassafras was banned from all mass-produced foods and drinks. Root beer companies scrambled. Artificial flavors replaced natural sassafras. File powder vanished. Grandmothers stopped brewing the tea. Herbalists no longer recommended it. The FDA didn't tell you the whole story. The rats in those studies had to drink the equivalent of 32 bottles of root beer every day for months. Humans? Not even close. Meanwhile, nutmeg, cinnamon, and black pepper, all containing saffrol, remained perfectly legal. Why? Sassafras wasn't dangerous in kitchens, it was inconvenient. By the 1970s, law enforcement discovered something else. Saffrol could be converted into MDMA, known as ecstasy. Suddenly, a tree that Native Americans had used safely for 10,000 years became classified as a drug precursor, not because it was unsafe in kitchens, but because it could be weaponized. The DEA made saffrol a controlled chemical. Sassafras trees remained, growing quietly across eastern forests, but commercial use vanished. Even today, it's legal to harvest a sassafras tree for personal use, but commercial sale remains off-limits. Sassafras tea was more than flavor. It contained anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial compounds. Its mucilage soothed digestion. File powder was rich in vitamins and minerals. Creole gumbo, the original root beer, all rooted in sassafras knowledge. And yet, one generation forgot. Recipes vanished. Children grew up thinking root beer comes from a lab, not from roots in the ground. The irony, sassafras could still help in modern medicine. Research suggests small amounts might even protect against certain diseases. But bureaucracy, regulation, and corporate interests keep the knowledge hidden. Today, sassafras still grows in forests, in hidden corners, in quiet resilience. It doesn't care about FDA bans, DEA lists, or forgotten recipes. It just waits for someone to remember. Look past the regulations, past the industry, past the noise, and you'll find it. A tree trusted for 10,000 years, a tree that shaped a nation, a tree that never stopped giving. For thousands of years, it nourished, healed, and flavored life. For centuries, it built wealth and culture. Then, in a few decades, bureaucracy erased it from memory. But the trees remain, the roots remain, the seeds sleep in the soil. Sassafras waits, quietly, patiently, for recognition. All it asks is that we remember, that we honor the knowledge that came before us. The story of sassafras isn't just about a plant, it's about who controls knowledge. For 10,000 years, indigenous peoples knew how to use sassafras safely. For 400 years, it was woven into American culture. Then, between 1960 and 1980, it vanished not because traditional use was dangerous, but because bureaucracy, drug enforcement, and corporate interests aligned to make it disappear. But the tree is still here. The knowledge is still recoverable. Every year, fewer people remember. Elders who drank sassafras tea are passing away. Recipes are lost. Children grow up thinking root beer comes from a factory, not from roots in the ground. This isn't just about sassafras. It's about a pattern. When plants offer alternatives to pharmaceuticals, they get scrutinized. When they cannot be patented, they get ignored. When they threaten control systems, they get banned. Sassafras threatened both, a natural compound anyone could access, a flavor no corporation could own, a tradition that required no permission. So it had to go. But here's what they could not erase: the trees, the roots, the seeds lying dormant in the soil. Sassafras is waiting, quietly, patiently, for recognition. All it asks is that we look past regulations and see what was always there. A tree that Native Americans trusted for 10,000 years, a tree that colonists depended on, a tree that flavored America's childhood. It never stopped giving its gifts. We just stopped paying attention.